Welcome, everyone. Welcome for our second IBA stage of 2025. Welcome to our guests for this month. The curatorial team, and part of the institutional team of the Hawai'i Triennial 2025. We're glad to have you here, and we look forward for a great presentation of this year's triennial, Aloha No. The Hawai'i Triennial was founded in 2017 as Honolulu Biennial back then. The institution has grown into one of the most relevant contemporary art events in the Pacific region. The inaugural Biennial and its 2019 successor collectively welcomed over 200,000 visitors. And then the first Hawai'i Triennial in 2022 featured 43 artists and art collectives drawing over 100,000 visitors alone. The shift to the triennial format was coupled with the intention to expand the event across multiple islands of the archipelago, to signal the intention to build on an inclusive and collaborative approach, fostering a critical dialogue with Hawaii's diverse territory. Hawai'i Triennial 2025 continued on this trajectory, expanding beyond Oahu, to include exhibitions and programs across Hawaii Island and Maui, deepening connection within the archipelago. Through contemporary art, the Triennial explores urgent cultural and environmental issues that resonate within and beyond the Pacific region. I mentioned already that we have the full curatorial team with us today, and that includes Wassan Al-Khudhair, who is a curator, writer based in Honolulu. She has extensive experience in biennials as well as other institutional settings. Notably, here is her role as founding director of Mataf in Doha, in Qatar. Wassan was a curator of the 6th Asian Art Biennial in Taiwan. Quick note here, it's great that we have almost a continuity within IBA stage, because we just featured the Asian Art Biennial in our previous IBA stage. Going back to Wassan, as the curator of modern and contemporary art, she spearheaded Third Space, shifting conversation about contemporary arts at the Birmingham Museum of Art. And she was also a co-artistic director of the 9th Gwangju Biennial in 2012. Also with us is Binna Choi. Binna Choi is connecting from Seoul. She is a former director at the Casco Art Institute in Utrecht. Binna is known for exploring collaborative and socially engaged cultural practices, from long-term projects like the Grand Domestic Revolution, which was connected with the 2016 Gwangju Biennial, to co-curating the Singapore Biennial. Her work often reframes the relationship between art, community, and the commons towards a new art and institutional form. Also with us is Noelle Kahanu. Noelle is a curator, writer, filmmaker, and assistant specialist at the University of Hawaii at Manoa in the American Studies Department. She has worked extensively at the intersection of culture, history, and contemporary art, focusing on advocating and giving space to indigenous voices and narratives from Hawaii and the Pacific region. And that concludes the curatorial team of Hawai'i Triennial 2025. Also with us is Josh Tengan. Josh is a Honolulu-based independent curator, writer, and community arts organizer from Paoa.
Oh, yeah.
Paoa Kona Oahu. He serves as assistant curator of he served as assistant curator of Honolulu Biennial 2019 and returned to Hawai'i Contemporary as exhibition manager of Hawai'i Triennial 22. From 2015 to 19, he worked with local native Hawaiian artists at
Uhonua Society.
Honua Society, to deliver Hawaii's largest annual thematic contemporary art exhibition, Contact. He was also an associate director of Ohuna Society in 2021 to 22. Welcome, everyone. It's great to have you here. And we look forward to a great presentation of a triennial / biennial in the beginning that we've heard much about, but we never had as part of our IBA programming. So it's great to have you here. With this, I give you the floor, and I look forward to the Q&A section at the end of your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mahalo Nui Christian, for the introduction. Velina mai me ke aloha no, o Josh Tengan ko ui noa, no Paoa mai iau, maku o kona, ka moku puni o Oahu, ka pai aina o Hawaii, no hoa ma Paoa. So yeah, my name is Josh Tengan. As Christian mentioned, I was born and raised and currently live here in Paoa, where I'm joining you from, on the island of Oahu. I'm the Associate Director of Hawai'i Contemporary. We're the organization that delivers the Hawai'i Triennial. So it's my pleasure to be joining you today. Thank you so much to the staff and the board of International Biennial Association. Thank you for hosting this presentation and inviting us to share with you a little bit about the Hawai'i Triennial and its current edition, Aloha No. I'll just be kicking off the conversation or the presentation today, kind of sharing a little bit about Hawai'i Contemporary, giving a sort of brief institutional history of sorts, and my own personal history with the organization. And yeah, get into its kind of history and its founding and kind of where we're headed next. So mahalo. Let's see. Next slide. I share this map just to kind of help situate us in the world here. There's Hawaii, the Hawaiian archipelago, which sits almost kind of at the center or at the pico of the Pacific Ocean of Moana Nui Akea, as we call it here in Hawaii, the Great Ocean. So Hawai'i Contemporary was founded by Isabella Elahe Hughes, KJ Baisa, and Catherine Tudor back in 2015 as a dedicated contemporary art platform here in Hawaii. It was founded originally as the Honolulu Biennial Foundation. At the time of its founding, Hawaii or Honolulu had not had any museum, gallery, or a platform on kind of an institutional level that was solely dedicated to contemporary art. That was actually since 2011 when the Contemporary Museum merged with the Honolulu Museum of Art, formerly the Honolulu Academy of Arts, back then. So our founders, who I'd mentioned, had been working internationally beyond Hawaii in contemporary art as curators and writers, administrators, and had witnessed this kind of proliferation of biennials and triennials around the world, and felt compelled and inspired to found one here in Honolulu. You know, like many new biennials, the founding of Honolulu Biennial was met with a bit of caution and skepticism even, both by community and institutions, asking questions like, why is this important? who is this really for? What does a triennial or a biennial offer local communities? And so these are the questions that the organization has grappled with and continue to grapple with, over our last 10 years. I think these are questions that all triennials and biennials really kind of grapple with. And so in 2017, Hawai'i Contemporary debuted the first inaugural Honolulu Biennial, middle of now here, with Curatorial Director Fumio Nanjo, and also Nahidaka Mason. And then, as it was mentioned, in 2019, we delivered a second biennial, To Make Wrong Right Now, which was curated by Nina Tonga, who was a longtime contemporary art curator at Te Papa in Wellington, New Zealand. I had the fortune of working as assistant curator with Nina Tonga that year. It was actually my first sort of like big international art exhibition, first time ever doing something at that scale. And then fast forward, it was in 2020, amidst the global pandemic, that the organization transitioned from a triennial model to a biennial model, or sorry, the opposite, from a biennial model to a triennial model. And then also renaming it Hawai'i Triennial instead of Honolulu. Partially that was sort of a signaling for that really reflected the organization's aspiration of extending its activities across the entire archipelago and not just centered on Honolulu. As we know, most biennials and triennials really use this, the model of the city as a way to structure these events. They sort of explore and think about and look at the kind of dynamics of a city, how people kind of move and circulate through a city, and kind of honoring what makes that city sort of unique and special. And so Hawaii really kind of sits outside of that model of looking at the city, not because it's really about looking at Hawaii as a nation or being a state, or being a colony on the fringes of US empire, but it is because we are an archipelago. Living here in Hawaii, we know that each island has its own unique histories, its own mo'olelo, its own stories, its own genealogies. And I think that Hawai'i Triennial in one way is a way to honor and sort of celebrate this difference. It's also an effort to decentralize Honolulu as some kind of creative hub for culture and creativity. And it's an effort to bring contemporary art from across the globe to communities across our Pai'aina. So as I mentioned, so my kind of relationship to the organization, I started as a volunteer back in 2017, joined the curatorial team in 2019, came back as an exhibition manager in 2022, and then ultimately joined staff. And so I've really seen sort of the biennial and the triennial kind of from various angles, from different vantage points. And it's been, really a sort of important part of my, own personal growth as well. As I mentioned, this is the first year, actually, that we are actually present across multiple islands. Back in 2022, although we changed our name to Hawai'i Triennial, we were still concentrated on the island of Oahu. And so for this year, in 2025, we have 14 sites across 3 islands. Most of them are still concentrated on Oahu, but we're also able to partner with Haleho Ike Ike at the Bailey House, on Maui in Wailuku, and also the Donkey Mill Art Center in Holualoa on Hawaii Island, and East Hawaii Cultural Center in Hilo on Hawaii Island. And so making a triennial across multiple islands is no small feat. It's actually a huge one. And so I must shout out to our sort of dedicated, our very dedicated partners who we've worked with closely over the past couple of years to really make this a reality. So mahalo to everyone. This year we also have a list of 50 artists, or 50 artists from across the Pacific and beyond. We have of the 49 artists, 16 of them are based here in Honolulu, or sorry, based here in Hawaii, or from Hawaii and living in the diaspora. And so with that, I'd like to turn it over to our wonderful curatorial team. I believe Binna is gonna kind of kick us off here. So mahalo nui, Binna.
I thank you, Josh. The contextualization of the triennial and being with us all the time. Mahalo to you. So this is a picture of us with Josh and the Rosina Porter, the director of the Hawai'i Contemporary, with Dr. Manulani Aluli Meyer. We call her Auntie Manu, in front of her house. So she has been very influential for our thinking process, curatorial process, and deciding upon the title ALOHA No. And she's the philosopher, educator, and community organizer. In doing all these activities, she advocates the value, Hawaiian value and Hawaiian way of thinking, where the aloha take a central position in it. So here is a quotation from one of her latest essays called Spiritually Centered Around Aloha Pono, a Discipline of Love and Truth, which we republished in our reader last June. Noelle, you wanna tap into this? Oh, you are muted. And the screen size has to be adjusted. Screen.
Yeah, so aloha everyone. Opao o Noelle Kahanu. So happy to be here. And I'd actually like to, in addition, so we were informed by many Hawaiian and Indigenous and other scholars in how we approached and shaped the triennial, both in terms of content and in terms of process. And so I want to read actually a quick little poem by Puanani Burgess that helped us, that really has shaped me and shaped us as a curatorial team. He aloha, he alo, Face to Face by Puanani Burgess. He alo, Face to Face. That's how you learn about what makes us weep. He alo, Face to Face. That's how you learn what makes us bleed. He alo, Face to Face. That's how you learn what makes us feel, what makes us work, what makes us sing, what makes us bitter, what makes us fight, what makes us laugh, what makes us stand against the wind, what makes us sit in the flow of power, what makes us us. Not from a distance, not from far away, not from a book, not from an article you read, not from the newspaper, not from what somebody told you, not from a reliable source, not from a cliff, not from a cave, not from your reality, not from your darkness, but he alo, face to face. Or else, pa'akawaha, shut tight your mouth. A'ohe o kahinana o luna o kapali. Iho mai a lalo ne. Ike ke ao nui ke ao iki he alo. The top of the cliff isn't the place to look at us. Come down here and learn of the big and little current face to face, and come and help us dig the lo'i deep. As you can see from the slide, we did collectively gather together, the curatorial team and the Hawai'i Contemporary team, to build our foundation together with our toes in the mud, with our hands pulling weeds and pulling kalo, one of the foundational foods of Hawaii and the Pacific. And I think, it speaks to the way in which we had to, as three independent curators who had not really met before. I think Binna and I were on a same, we were on a team talking about an award at one point, but really we did not know each other personally. And so I think this process of getting to know one another took time, but it absolutely contributed to the overall outcome of the Hawai'i Triennial. So I think, as we're thinking about lessons to share in terms of, what our experiences were, just this place-based notion, giving curators the time to get to know one another, get to know the place within which a triennial takes place, getting to know its people, the artists that generate their work from this very, very special archipelago is critical.
Maybe Josh, you can go back to the slide before where we can talk a bit more about Aloha, both at one before, the pink one. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, because I think what Noelle share with us now is that how theme work. So it's a theme through which we invited artists, but it also functioned as our working principle. So there is this question: is Aloha present with us? Is something that we carried on. Yeah, like that. So I think Aloha no. You could also read Aloha no if you have no knowledge of Olelo Hawaii or Hawaiian language. So we play this double meaning, that one like refusal or resistance to misconception or appropriation of Aloha, as it's omnipresent as a brand name or just like welcome sign in like different touristic venue. But if you know a little more, if you take step into where you are entering with respect, Aloha no has like carry you to deeper meaning of Aloha. I was as a foreigner, I was like aloha and love somehow used, these two words are used at the same time, sometimes as if aloha, like love is translating aloha, or there's something next, like love is next to aloha. But I think there's something very special about Hawaiian language. You cannot just like define in very simple way. It's something that you live with, and then it thrives in the context. So meaning spread like love, affection, gratitude, kindness, and pity, compassion, and grief, which I find very crucial, that this actually Hawaiian notion of love, aloha, include grief in it, as the very first dictionary of Hawaiian language says it. Wassan, you wanna add a bit more on this?
Sure. Aloha, everyone. Thank you for hosting us again. What can I add? I think just to kind of connect to things that Binna and Noelle have said, I think that building a foundation as a curatorial team has been so crucial to the work that we were able to do. And for me personally, the work called me to move here. And so partial way through the project, I moved to Hawaii. And I did that for a number of reasons, but I think for me as a kind of in terms of my curatorial practice and my contributions, and having curated other projects before, I really wanted to approach curating in a different way, in a grounded way. I think one of the challenges we can probably all talk about in another conversation is triennials and biennials being these models that kind of fly you in and out to space. And how do you get grounded? How do you really connect and build community? And so that has been a really generative part of the process for me in terms of really beginning to, and I feel really now, I'm only now beginning to understand some of Hawaii. And then to just kind of come back to the theme and to say that I think that Aloha No is able to, I think it's about a practice. And I think for us as a curatorial team, we wanted to see how we can build a theme that was not just an exhibition and not just an invitation to artists to think about, but also something that we might attempt at embodying. And so how do we embody the theme as well as create an exhibition around this theme? And there have been times where it has been easier to embody the theme, and I think there have been times where it has been harder to embody the theme. But I also think that's what Aloha is about. It's about the beauty and the strength of interconnectedness and love and compassion, but it's also about rupture. It's about conflict. It's about the things that can come from those types of clashes or disconnects or misunderstandings. And, you know, we really try to embrace all aspects of that as a practice, as a making of an exhibition, but also within the exhibition itself.
So as we move to the second slide, next slide, so we made a slide in the way that we can show you the process and behind the scene a little bit, and then some emphasis we made in, or like important, like notable approach that we care about in setting up the exhibition. So next slide. So like a taro patch, if we move to, can we move to, yeah, so this is the some of the images of our time in putting our legs, our feet and hands in the mud where the taros are growing. So taro has been, or used to be the main staple for Hawaii. However, it's only like 50, about 50 decades ago, 50 years ago, that Hawaii working on restoring indigenous, its own way of farming and regrowing taro. So if you move to next slide, the concept of notion of aloha no, which you can translate as love of land, love for land, or care of land, has been a key also in taking the concept and also questioning how we can represent or this notion through the exhibition and with artists. So having said, Aloha Aina is like key movement for Hawaiian sovereignty movement that has been rising in since the 70s. And this include like restoration of the indigenous farmland with taro, but it is also, yeah, it's not only that. How can you add to that? It's a movement, different kind of nationalist movement in Hawaii. Of course, like nation and then nationalism have to be understood differently in like other contexts, like Europe, where far right coming with exclusive notion of nationalism, and it includes nation being land and the air, things that feed us. Noelle?
Yeah, so just to speak maybe a little bit to the slides that we're looking at. Emily Karaka is a Maori, very well-known Maori artist, but you know, for her, she was wanting to see the connections between her mauna and the mauna of Hawaii. And she became very inspired by looking at Hawaii Island and the main 5 mauna or mountains that were there. But she, you know, in each of the, and these are 6 feet by 6 feet, these canvases, they, you know, they incorporate her own genealogy of practice and of conflicts and protests that have happened in Aotearoa. And so she is, you know, she is speaking to Hawaii in the context of Aloha No, but through her own personal, you know, and intimate experiences. So I think it's a kind of a personal, a perfect example of how Aloha Aina and Aloha No is speaking cross-culturally, you know, across geography, across time, across generations. And there's also like this, to go back to the specificity. So we're talking about Bishop Museum, which is where her installation happens. And I was telling her that the ancient name for the area is Ka'iwi'ula, which literally means the red bone. And then her work inspires this, that she creates these images for the people of the red bone. And there's this image that runs across the bottom of her canvases that are these red bones. And I just love the way, you know, even just an isolated conversation with an artist, that you months later, you know what I mean, even years sometimes, depending on the timing, you'll see that embedded and manifested in their work when it arrives. And she'd never shown her work in a black box, which is where it is now. And even that, I just, the thinking about triennials as a way in which it's something new for us as Hawaii, but also something that's new for the artists.
And Aloha, and one of my favorite Aloha Aina translations is when you hear people describe it as that which feeds us. And I think something that is so beautiful about Olelo Hawaii is how layered of a language it is. And, you know, these works that you see here alongside Emily Karaka's Nalamaku Asing and Sione Felatau, you know, I think are trying to expand this idea that it is about the care of the land, but it's about the interconnectedness and the role the land plays in lives, and especially in Hawaii and in the Pacific here specifically. In that, you know, these mauna are so powerful, right? And you know, the volcano erupts. It's destruction to feed creation. It's a spiral. It goes from one to the next. In the same way that one of the mauna is Mauna Kea, which is a site of a very sacred site and a place that was a gathering for a really strong Hawaiian uprising and voicing against the building of yet another telescope. And so it's not only about the Aina and the caring of the Aina, but it's the way that the Aina cares for its people. And I think that that's a really strong message that comes across in these works and some other works as well in the Triennial.
One thing also I was a bit puzzled is like, so okay, Aina is that important in Hawaii, but it's island. The major thing of Hawaiian landscape or nature is ocean. So when we think about Aina, actually it's not just land itself, like kind of myopic, but it's a whole environment. So these two works, which has blue, it has strong representational feature of the ocean in different terms, but it all are forms of expression of Aloha Aina. And then down there's a picture of our visit to the volcano park on the summit, where also volcano is currently erupting. And we were there both at night and daytime. That experience was so profound. It's like you realize, yeah, you are on Aina, you are on Earth, you are in this cosmos. And that, for me, really enabled to reach out to Emily Karaka. Like, we saw these stars in the volcano park, and you are the one who can actually make a representation of it. And she said, like, yeah, I can draw like how many stars as you want. And actually, in the painting, you can see the stars, although we are missing it here. Next slide. Yeah, so thinking of this like aesthetic or representation of Aloha Aina, more specifically, we were searching for aesthetic that is more inclusive. So rather than just seeing it from distance, there should be, and there are ways that you're touching it and sensing it and playing in it. And I think one of the power of a biennial and triennial is that it addresses so many different kinds of public. So this form of aesthetic is quite key also to address and include this diverse public. So in that live, we invited several artists, including Kapuani Kiwanga, and then Art Labor, who in turn invited Archamti, indigenous craftsmen in the Central Highland in Vietnam. Noelle, you wanna give a bit more elaboration on the Kapuani's work? I also include this image from the Hawaiian Hall of the Bishop Museum. I love that you made link between this Hawaiian traditional house, hale, and with Kapuani's work.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us curatorially, it was important to have a work that was speaking both to place, to these institutional histories, and then to each other. And so there's, you know, at Bishop Museum, you have 2 large galleries. So 3, 4 artists were in the front. And then we had 1, 2, 3 artists in the back. Is that right? 4 artists in the back. But we have here the sort of connection between Kapuani Kiwanga's work, which is a kind of architectural intervention, or definitely created in response to the shape and size of this gallery, but it also harkens to kind of a traditional hale pili that can be found in the next building, which is Hawaiian Hall. But I think all of the artists that are featured here really were considering sort of the materiality and the collections that are often found both in ethnographic institutions or museums. So thinking about collections and even just how we collect, why we collect, whose stories are told, whose narratives are suppressed. And yeah, and I feel like it, I mean, so I need to say this. There were 3, it was the first time ever that Hawai'i Contemporary chose 3 women of color in a non-hierarchical fashion. And I want to freely admit that this process meant things took a little bit longer. Like the theme took a little bit longer. The sub-themes within each venue took a little bit longer, the selection of the artists. But I also think behind these decisions, there is a genuine sense of thoughtfulness and intimacy that people experience. You know, I try and ask people all the time, like, what did you think? You know, and there is a sense of care that people experience in the space, which I think is yeah, essential and critical.
Yeah, so we went through very principled consensus process. So I think that worked out, but something was easy, something others are not. I think like art labor installation, this is existing work, I mean, adapted from existing work that made in 2022 in Okoyama Art Summit. And so we already had image of this work, and it was one of the work that we very quickly grab on. This is it. But work really gained a new relevance in Hawaii, like because we built this whole thing with a community participating while they are learning how to do lashing. There will be another workshop coming soon, and it becomes like a large musical instrument, like kind of bamboo drum, which play with people and wind, air. And there are some oh no, I can't remember in English. What is it? This puppetry, like small key that used for like a funeral, but also like children's toy. And it's very loved and enjoyed by community. It's just sitting at the Foster Botanical Garden, outdoor piece. Yeah, next slide. Yeah, with this more like inclusive, participatory, or you can also use this notion, immersive aesthetic. Meliana Meyer, Kanaka Oe artist, made a piece that is becoming the emblem of the Hawai'i Triennial, as also she's taking up this pava, the fishtail sign, which symbolize connection, connectivity, and healing and repairing. And this is also a way for us to say that our, I don't want to use like selection or choice, but like our invitation to artists actually start with Kanaka Oe, like Hawaiian artists. That was our basis for curatorial artistic selection.
I would add here that the importance of non-traditional venues for art. So both the Foster Botanical Garden would be considered a place that people aren't going expecting to see art, and most definitely going to a seat of government, in this instance, the seat of the government of the city and county of Honolulu, where the mayor's office is and the city council's office is. You know, was a really powerful testament to sort of the way and indigenous sovereignty is nested within state and governmental structures, but still feels so very sovereign. We're reading an article today for class, and it talks about, you know, the importance of sovereign space. And that definitely is what was created. And I've been there. I watch when people walk into the space and then encounter the umeke and are just really shocked and blown away. And so I love that ability of the Hawai'i Triennial to be able to introduce art to entire audiences that are really not expecting it.
And I think the other exciting opportunity a format like a triennial can offer, particularly for artists who are based in the city where the triennial is happening, is an opportunity to think big and reach for, reach for that project that you've always wanted to do, but maybe haven't had the support or the encouragement or the, the opportunity. And I think that was something that we were really excited about with many of the artists that we work with who are based in Hawaii, for encouraging them to kind of go for it. And I think many of them did, Miliana Meyer being one of them, just really kind of knocking it out of the park, just going for it. And we're really grateful that a format like a triennial can really be a space for that kind of invitation for artists.
So I think every day different community also using this umeke lao. Like umeke lao actually means the udon bowl. So you see usually in the scale that you can have in your hands on the table, but like now it's enlarged in the lobby of the city hall. And I captured this Instagram post where the Honolulu Police Department having their meeting in the umeke. Imagining like umeke as a new kind of parliament architecture, political infrastructure is like extremely exciting. So next slide. Yeah, so in terms of also place center approach, like in other way of saying like site specificity, but it's also linked to again like aloha aina, love of land. So like no place comes as like neutral or like without story, without those who came and care and lived before us. So Waipana is the storied place in English, and this also as taken as a title of the new initiative by Honolulu, how to say, the Honolulu City's Cultural Department with many other community partners, including Aupuni Space. And it's a project over 3 years. And the first phase unfolded as a collaboration between Waipana and then Hawai'i Triennial 2025. So in that way, we also could realize 3 more ambitious scale-wise project in outdoor in a specific place. So one being Leahi, which is known as a diamond head. This is like landmark that you see a lot in postcard. So it's the typical touristic image, but not many people would know this is also like a military base. Also, not many people would know like what kind of history it has through the Kingdom of Hawaii. And that's what Brandy Nalani McDougall, the poet, artist, wanted to convey with her work series called Aloha Ka'apuni, Revolutionary Aloha. So she composed 3 new poems for Triennial and one dedicated to Leahi. And with Waipana, we realized this form with glass panel where the part of the poem is written. So you can read poem and reread the Leahi through that poem. And another site that tells like a military history or militaristic context of Hawaii is the War Museum at the end of the Waikiki. And in front of that, there is this ki'i, wooden sculpture by Rocky Jensen. Now I want to bring Noelle to elaborate on this piece. And this piece was made in '99, and then there is additional work that we made to revive it.
Yeah, so as Binna was mentioning, these are 3 artists whose work, who we had already selected within the triennial. And Rocky Jensen was the only artist in the history of the biennial/triennial that was recognized posthumously. So he had passed in September of 2023. And this is an installation that he had done, and it was coming up on its 25th, or had just passed its 25th anniversary of being present. And I think in terms of, you know, how we think about public art, it really did inspire. And if you read this knot theory, the way the person is describing it, how initially it didn't seem to make much sense. And yet it really does address this notion of how we care for our public art. And it was badly in need of love and care and tenderness, which it received through this Bloomberg funded project, which was completed in conjunction with a Native Hawaiian organization, a Hawaiian organization that would continue to care for them and clean and tend to this installation without the support of the Army Museum. So I think it addresses a lot of things, but one point just to make is the importance of this public-private partnerships that is established through triennials and biennials, and that it resulted in the mayor being very invested, both because this is a project that comes out of the mayor's office, because they were the recipients of the award. But this connection between the 2 projects resulted in the mayor being very invested, and I you know that these are important things to do, especially at times that we find ourselves right now, where we're probably in the greatest crisis in terms of lack of federal funding and support, and outright hostility and animosity toward what artists are doing and what they represent. So yeah, now would we have guessed that this is the moment that we find ourselves in? And Wassan is always reminding us, yes, well, we were thinking about this, you know what I mean, that there would have been a presidential election, and who knows what would happen. But even in our worst nightmares, I don't think we would have anticipated where we are. And so in so many ways, I think the triennial, both in terms of the public art that we see here, but also what's happening in the galleries and in our 14, you know, all 14 venues, really attest to the importance of art at a time when we feel most vulnerable and maybe lacking hope.
Yeah. So
just one more comment I wanted to make about this idea of place, and just to mention that, you know, it was really important to us in the process of making this triennial to really think about where works were placed, whether it's in a particular venue and in conversation with other work. And part of that extended into commissioning sort of texts that are in our guidebook and will be in our catalog that kind of give history of place as a way to ground the visitors and viewers, and to offer that kind of, I think, prompt to think about the genealogy of place, and that you're not just coming somewhere to see it as the Vahipana sort of terminology. I think that's what it talks about. It talks about this idea that you're not coming to something as new, but that it has a history. So you see that here with the Vahipana collaboration, but we extended that into the other sites of the triennial as well through these commissioned place-based texts.
which I like to add as the kind of establishing tradition from the last edition of the
Yes,
Hawai'i
it's a,
Triennial.
yeah. Thank you, Binna.
Yeah, so next slide. You wanna take lead, Wassan?
Sure. I think something that we were really interested in also thinking about is in the complexity of Aloha No, is also what does it mean? How do you, and I think, you know, Noelle reminds us of this moment that we all shared when we were on Maui and her auntie was at an event with us, a sort of a meeting that we were doing with community members on Maui during our research phase of the project. And her auntie reminded us about, you know, how we must also defend Aloha fiercely. And I think that, you know, Aloha is also about standing up for what's right and being bold and brave. But also this triennial is an exercise for us, or as part of our instructions as a curatorial team, is to really make a triennial that is international. And as I think what you can tell up to this point of our presentation, you know, we've talked a lot about how important it is to ground, for us it was to ground this triennial in Hawaii. Everything from committing to the title being an Olelo Hawaii and the values of the theme being informed by Hawaiian values and Hawaiian history and this place. But it is also an international triennial. That's the premise of this project. And so we really also embraced something that Auntie Manu told us early on about the way in which Aloha can be exported into the world, out into the world, and can be something that might help us as we navigate the challenging times that we live in. And so we wanted to think about the way in which Aloha extends beyond Hawaii, and to think about that through inter-island connections and solidarities. And so through the work of multiple artists, we managed to do that by thinking about connections to places like Jeju Island, Puerto Rico, Taiwan, and here in this particular case of this slide, also as far as a place like Palestine. There's an image at the bottom left of an event that happened at Aupuni Space that we went to during the research phase of this project. And it was an incredible gathering of artists and writers and thinkers, an organization or a student faculty organization at the University of Hawaii Manoa, the Students and Faculty for Justice in Palestine, a longstanding group, a longstanding active group, even before the recent October 7th events. They gathered and they bring artists and thinkers from Palestine to Hawaii. It's something they've been doing for a long time. And I think it was that moment where we just realized there's so much strength and solidarity that goes beyond place and even beyond the Pacific to a place as far as Palestine. And we know this because there are artists that go between Hawaii and Palestine. And so we wanted to build on this as another way to think about what Aloha No can mean and how Aloha No can resonate beyond Hawaii, beyond the Pacific, and reach even further. And so here you see images of two artists' works in the triennial. On the left is a piece by Yezen Khalidi, and on the right is a work by Jumana Manna, and both are in their own ways kind of expanding on this connection of solidarity and the strength of solidarity amongst two places that are, you know, occupied and face some of the same challenges through history. I don't know if you guys want to add anything.
Yeah, due to time limit that we have,
Keep going. Yeah.
it would be great to delve into the
Yeah.
each work. But I think this work also can allow us continue on that topic, like Aloha for air. Air is a Hawaiian word for sovereignty, but it also means a breath and life. Yeah. well, like what to begin. So like it's a lot going here. Like maybe I want to just zoom into this opaque image of a person speaking on the top, because it's Jamaica Hailey Osorio, thinker and writer who's teaching at UH Manoa, and she gave this keynote during the Festival of Pacific Art and Culture that was held June last year, when we also organized our art summit within and alongside of it. And this keynote was titled E Mauke Ea, Sovereignty and Sanctuary and Collective Liberation. And here, like, why is she going through different kings and governance of the Kingdom of Hawaii, and within the current state of Hawaii as an occupied kingdom, she addressed actually what's the use of the notion of sovereignty if we mean that as a state. So is there any states that we are satisfied with now? Or is there a state that genuinely care people and land? So she was proposing that we rather use the meaning of life and breath when we think of the sovereignty. So like a core meaning of air. And in that, she bring another notion like sanctuary. In Hawaiian, puhuhunua is a key, where we give refuge to each other, including human and non-human, and refuge to stateless comrade and people. So and that was like, I mean, there have been throughout many revelatory moments, and it was very much so, which was also telling how like place like Native Books in Chinatown, Honolulu, has been serving as our puhonua, where it's a bookshop, but also a community working space and community gathering space with a 3-floor, and where also exhibition take place. But this is where you meet communities without any like institutional connection or strata. This is where you study, where you dream together while you are drinking. And like one image show also that we were getting reading of the I Ching from Liz, who's a main manager of the Native Books. And so based on this background, it was exciting that Wendelin van Oldenburg, artists who were born and raised in the Netherlands and currently based in Berlin, connecting three bookshops, one Native Books in Honolulu, and then 2 other bookshops in Berlin, one Hopscotch and Ka'ayanu. So both are like this bookstore in Berlin. It's not just like German bookstore. It's a sanctuary for a community from different background, where also reading group has been taking place, which included in Wendelin's experience, reading of this text by Nassar Abraham called Revolution After Revolution, where the writer actually advocating revolution is not establishment of state, but it already happened in refugee camp, where the commune was created, where the care was taking place. So through her work, that we had this opportunity to bring the Hawaiian and Hawaii-based thinkers and activists, and the Palestinian writer and organizers addressing this text by Nassar, and then also lecture, and now in text by Jamaica Osorio, where we touched upon the notion of sovereignty and aloha. Next slide.
And I think something that's really resonant here and continues as a thread is this idea that everyone's all of our sovereignty is interdependent on one another. And that's something that you hear Jamaica talk about, but also many others, you know, that in order for, you know, someone else to have it, we have to have it. In order for us to have it, they have to have it. And that, I think that's a powerful message. That's a part of something that I think we were thinking about.
So these themes continues in exhibition in Maui, the Haleho Ike Ike at the Bailey House. It's a small exhibition. I think our step, or the Hawai'i Contemporary Triennial step, to make the island-wide exhibition or archipelago-wide exhibition is a gradual process. But however small it is, it like actually each one of the, I think one of the things that we strive to is that each exhibition each exhibition site holds the whole. So while each exhibition site is very specific, but they show one of the core aspect of Aloha No. And this Maui exhibition, we have 3 artists, like Brandy McDougall, poet, whose work we addressed briefly, and Rocky Jensen, again, with the Kiha Waine statue you see on the right side. Then Japanese artist Rieko Shiga's work, called When That Night Leads. And her work over last decades is rooted in post-Fukushima situation. So process of restoration, reparation in after the catastrophic disaster as consequence of tsunami and the explosion of the nuclear reaction, or like crime or result of the capitalism. But this work is show that how a guy has been salvaging the material that detritus after a tsunami and bring that to a top of mountain and then making sanctuary for this. So he cares about this detritus and market against property regime. And that work resonate with a film project by Noelle Kahanu Vines and Sansia Miyalashiva Nasi, both coming from Maui. And what they are showing for Ho'aletu Surge, actually part of the long feature documentary, whose title is Air, Sovereign. This film will be launched quite soon, but film show the process of reclaiming the land by an elder uncle, Keanamoku. Josh, can you help me?
Keamoku Kapu.
Keanamoku Kapu, who's who has been preserving the cultural heritage in Maui, in particular in the area Lahaina, which is heavily affected by fire 2023. The film show many key moments for thinking of the sovereignty. One was about the language. It showed the moment that language class and talking about pain of possibility of losing the language and recovering, preserving, and thriving that. But also this Haunani, very famous speech by Haunani K. Trask on the 100th anniversary of the overthrow of the kingdom, where she has been very clearly articulating that we are not American. Different take on Aloha, Aloha as a refusal, Aloha as a resistance. Next slide, and then I think we are getting to the end. Can I invite Noelle here for Ho'oponopono healing? Like, I think I'm like healing. I think that's where we are arriving at something. But Noelle, I think you know it from the very beginning. That's actually a core in Aloha.
Definitely within Aloha No is embodied the concept of both truth telling, but healing that comes from that. So we have here work, this sort of in the center is really about suicide. It's by Sonia Kelleher Combs, but it also appears within the gallery of an artist that took his own life. And I think these are very real issues for many communities. And I think it was important for us to address these traumas and heartaches that occur and continue to occur within so many of our communities. But it's paired also with other work that addresses like the bombing of Kaho'olawe, island that was used as target practice by the military. At the same time, it's paired with poetry about Kaho'olawe, with Brandy and Alani McDougall talking about regrowth and repair. And even notions that what is invasive, even like species of seaweed, have a purpose and a place within our communities and can be turned and transformed into art. So I really and I do think that people feel genuinely that there is healing that is happening within the galleries, that intentions made manifest. You only have an idea curatorially. You don't necessarily know what's going to happen or the existing exhibitions that will come of it. But, when we go back to this idea of this butterfly patch and the peva and that umeke, that giant calabash that has those butterfly patches embedded into it, that the point maybe of art and artists really is to identify the chaos around us and to sort of call us to a higher purpose, to heal these rifts and societal fractures, and not to compound them. And these are daily choices that kind of we almost all have to make. And I hopefully at the end of this process that we will see that people will have moved through these spaces, that artists through their collaborative projects or through their time in Hawaii have really come together and healed in ways that are not just performative, but are genuinely, profound and transformative.
Yes, so next slide. Yeah, we see this two statue by Rose B. Simpson, titled Azin, which means to respect in Teva language. It's like looking up, it's in front of it's at the lawn in front of the Honolulu Museum of Art, and it's looking over a large park for Thomas Square, where there is also a statue of statue of Kamehameha?
Yeah, Kamehameha the Third. Yeah.
Kamehameha III, who had the moment of the reclaiming the sovereignty against the European settlers' encroachment. And like I love this. The face is grieving. It's in tears. I don't know, Wassan, you wanna add?
We can keep going. Yeah. I mean, I think what I can add is that I think these are incredibly powerful sculptures that Rose made that I think we intentionally wanted to place in this location that Binna described as a way to really center and bring visibility to Indigenous voices as a kind of confrontation. It's the first thing you see if you drive by or if you walk up, as a way to also indicate what we feel is important as part of Aloha No, what we feel has been the center of what has driven our kind of curatorial, I don't know, theme and ideas.
Yeah, in the Joan Poulet's work at the Bishop, the painting was accompanied by a selection of his poem. We also published small booklet of the poem. And I noticed that many people are really taking photo of this part of poem. The stones have light and grief has a great light. Next slide, and we are on the last page of the slide. And there are different ways of taking on this slide, very lively, by chanting. You say singing the chant, or you are just chanting. Oli is chant in Hawaiian.
So we this past weekend was the last of the venues to open, which is unusual, I think, in the sense that normally like all the venues open at the same time, but this one was, one of the partners had a previous commitment, but the pilina, or the closeness by which we had developed a relationship with the Kona, the Donkey Mill Art Center, really necessitated kind of going by their schedule. But I think it all works out in the end. And what happened is it coincided with spring break. And what this venue did is it's an arts community. They do, a maker space. They're a place for youth and students and adults to come together and create work. And so they took their spring break program and they dove into the concept of Aloha No, and all the programs for all the different age groups. They all learned about this concept and created artwork around it. One of the artists, Sonia, came and did workshops with the kids. And then they stood up and they, talked about what Aloha meant to them. So it was a really powerful way to kind of end the series of openings. And the kids all stood up and they sang this well-known oli of gratitude. And it goes like this. Uholoia kamakaloala puaikea ala kukaia kahaloala. Hawehi mai na lehua, mai o kuia ka halawaila, mahalo e na hua, mahalo e na kapuna ea, mahalo me ke aloha, mahalo me ke aloha. So just an expression of gratitude for this opportunity to share about Aloha No, about the triennial, the biennial as it was before, and to really be able to speak to the artists and all of our participating venues, and yeah, welcome any questions.
Thank you to the four of you. And yeah, I feel very, and I think I speak for everyone that will that is viewing this. I feel very honored for even this very beautiful closing chant. And yeah, I want to thank you for a presentation of Aloha No and of the Hawai'i Triennial this year. I'm learning the pronunciations as we go along, so thank you also for that. And I think it's a presentation that brought us not only the context within Hawaii, but also served throughout many of the things that you said as a reminder that biennials and triennials, of course, can really build spaces of solidarity, of collaboration between spaces of sanctuary, as you mentioned, and I'm referring specifically the Aloha for Ea section of the presentation, but more generally, I think the way that you worked really felt like trying to achieve this balance. Before moving into questions section, I just want to check with you because we're running a bit long on time. It's kind of fine from our sides, but I'm also aware that we're asking time from you. So if it's okay, I would ask you at least a couple of questions, but if you feel that there is time for more, I wrote down many, so we have plenty of material to work through, but I'm also very aware that this is not just time that we give to our viewers, but it's also time that we ask you. So please let me know what is appropriate on your side, and I'll adjust it.
I mean, I think 1 or 2 questions is fine. Yeah.
Wonderful. In which case, I will start with one question, which hopefully gives you all a space to answer. And I go back to a moment in the presentation in which we were discussing the spaces that the triennial inhabits, or inhabited, and inhabits because it's still running. And that's also a reminder to whoever is watching this before the end of the triennial to try to make their way to Hawaii to see them. And you mentioned, I think it was Noelle that was mentioning that the triennial gives, in many biennials give the space, but in this case also in particular, it gives space to inhabit non-traditional exhibition spaces. And this is, as I said, something quite canonical to most biennial. But I also believe that it does work differently in different contexts. No, this inhabiting spaces, they're not traditionally exhibition spaces. And we saw some examples. I mean, Binna was pointing even to this meeting of the police department within one of the works. But what I want to ask you, and what I wanted to reflect a bit maybe on is if you can give, if you can expand a bit on what this on what you feel this meant both for the public. So to be able to access spaces and to see works within spaces that they're not used to seeing works with, or contemporary artworks in, but also from the other point of view, like from the institution that is hosting these works, and from the spaces that are hosting these works. What does it do from their side as well? What kind of dialogue does it create on both ends, basically? Because I think we're often thinking of opening up spaces from a public perspective, no? So public get access to something. But I think we often also forget that it's a dialogue, it's a mediation also for the institutions that are hosting these works for the first time, maybe.
I'm wondering, Josh, if you could talk to Davies Pacific Center and the hub. And
yeah, I can definitely. So every year, or in each iteration, the organization kind of like takes on like a space of its own. It often in sort of like unusual spaces. I think it turned out that the first three iterations all happened to be in former retail spaces, as sort of as a function of sort of who our partners were. So we've worked with, or in the first iteration, we took over like a large former Sports Authority location, 40,000 square feet. It was an old sports retailer, you know, and it was actually in a building that was just about to, be demolished at some point. Like Howard Hughes, Ward Village, are kind of like one of the largest developers in Honolulu in an area called Kaka'ako in the urban core. It's a place facing rapid development. In this place, it's kind of moving from sort of like light industrial to more residential commercial. So they're trying to build this like walkable, like living community. And so this space came up, and we were able to partner with Howard Hughes to take that space. In the second iteration, we also partnered with Howard Hughes and transformed another sports store, which was a famous footwear. And in our third year, we partnered with another developer in Waikiki, kind of in the tourist hub, and took over a former retail space of Forever 21, which just recently went bankrupt. Anyways, yeah, so it's really interesting, I think, to take over a new place that sort of the public has never seen before, and to kind of show what's possible. And so this year, we partnered with Avalon, who has a building called the Davies Pacific Center in the financial district, the kind of like downtown Honolulu, the business district. It is a building that is now moving from sort of office and commercial to hotel residential. And so again, we are able to sort of partner with the organization and make an exhibition on the 14th floor of an office building, which, to my knowledge, has never been done in Honolulu, although it's been done, in many places across the world. So yeah, I think from an organizational standpoint, it's really kind of bringing people into places that they don't encounter art, and kind of showing what's possible, but always considering context of where we are. Yeah.
I was gonna add, I think that what's really great is we have so many different partners, and we have the way that we are working is that we need to meet each partner where they're at in terms of what they need and how they work. And that is sort of like the more boring part, which is like the logistical part of like, some people plan really far ahead, some people, so it's managing all of that. But I will say that with each kind of space and partner, there's a different thing that I think they also take away, because that was the other side of your question, Christian. So, it's like the public part, but then what about the institution? So like, just like a couple really quick examples. So like, Chitra Sasmita is showing at the Honolulu Museum of Art. And during her recent visit, they said, you know what, we have all of these historic Balinese paintings and we don't know anything about them. Would you come to the basement and look at them and just tell? And she was like, absolutely, this is my life. These are like my people. This is what I studied. And she had never seen those paintings before. So she's in the basement, and like the registrar and like the exhibitions folks and everyone's standing around, and she's sort of, this is from this period. This is what this means. And so it's just this beautiful moment where I think everyone is getting something out of that experience, right? The artist, the institution. And so it's a sort of really beautiful partnership in that way. And, I think at the Bishop Museum, you have an artist like Stephanie Suhuko, who's using the casework and the mount work as part of her installation, re-envisioning things that the museum has, but in a totally new way, that I think people at the museum are like, oh, there's other ways to think about our collection. There are other ways to think about the archives and what we have here. And then I think there are some institutions or organizations that we work with as partners who don't maybe have what we heard from people is we want to be able to have some of the triennial artists that are from faraway places, because that's harder for us to do in terms of knowing how and having the resources and having the support. And so, you know, being able to bring, for example, you know, Kanitha Tiff, who is a Cambodian artist, and her work to a place like the Donkey Mill, you know, where, you know, people in the audience at the opening last week were saying, you know, we're so honored to be able to have the work of artists from such faraway places in a place like the Donkey Mill. So I think you can't give one answer, but I think with each of these different partners, there's a slightly different thing that, you know, they have as added value through this partnership, in the same way that we are so grateful to them, because we have no triennial without them, you know. So I think it's a really mutually beneficial, a good partnership is when it can be mutually beneficial. And I feel really good that in so many of our sites in this triennial, like, there has been good feedback that we've all sort of really benefited from this experience of working together to present the triennial.
I mean, in a very positive way, I think the Hawai'i Triennial really function as a village festival, like different partnership taking part, different partners taking part in and then making it together. And I think that's something that we all can strive for wherever we do a biennial. And just one on the other thing that I want to bring is the huakai, which means journey or like field trip. And so I think we consider how actually people would travel, and then the environment as a part of the exhibition. I mean, like, especially after a pandemic, like, if we have to choose nature and art, what would you choose? We don't want to be contained indoor any longer. And then, like, Hawaii as a place is extremely beautiful, and our lesson, our relationship is indebted to that. So just bring people indoor and then focusing on artwork, it's not our aim. So it's like embed artworks in the place, and then journey from one place to another is something I think we very much care about.
For that, yeah, I think that answers a good part of what I was trying to get from the question. I want to just add another question maybe, and then we can conclude, I think. And that goes back to, and I think it kind of intertwines with this one, but it goes more into the aspect, so this was more an aspect of space and connected to that. And what I want to ask goes more into the question of time. And you mentioned, Noelle, that this was the first time that the Hawai'i Triennial chose 3 women of color to lead the exhibition making and the curatorial process. And you mentioned that the way that you worked as a non-hierarchical group was it took more time and so on, and I just want to understand a bit more from a practical point of view, because most of our viewers have also quite practical questions and quite practical things in mind. What this meant in terms of selection of artists, selection of spaces, working with the artists. And I think this is more for the curatorial team itself, and maybe for Josh as a parallel question within the same question, basically, a parallel aspect of the same question, is if you think that the switch from biennial to triennial does help these kind of processes and gives a bit more time. I mean, the time that you gain basically also allows for processes that need time rather than,
Okay, I can start. Oh, go ahead, Noelle.
I was going to say, well, since I brought it up, I just want to say, and I can't speak for Josh, and I don't think that the Hawai'i Contemporary has, you know, I mean, they're only now just beginning to think of the next iteration. But I would, if I were to venture a guess, I would say that they probably, I don't know that they would repeat a similar scenario because of the, the consequences of and the anxiety and sort of the stress when it's not really anticipated that this is the way things would happen. You know what I mean? And but I mean, maybe I could be wrong. We'll see. But one of the other things that I want to say is in this kind of careful selection of artists for whom we thought that they either had or were willing to have a profound connection to Hawaii and to its people and to each other as artists, that even when we said we would like existing work, they were like, no, we want to create new work. And I think that then also added to the sort of delays maybe or missed deadlines, because everybody was so excited about the theme, about the venue selections, about their contributions to this conversation, that the vast majority of the artists created new work. And so I think, we're talking about elongation in any number of ways, which often results in anxiety and stress on everyone else. Yeah.
I feel now that we're at this point where the exhibition's open and people are seeing it and we're having conversations, I feel even more empowered to stand by our process and the time that it took. I think, yeah, things were slower because there were 3 of us, but I feel like what we were able to do in the first part of our work together was build a foundation and build a set of shared values. And even at some point we articulated those, we wrote them down as this is our curatorial approach. These are the values that we're agreeing on. This is how we want to work. And also through that, to get to that, it meant we had to learn about each other and understand how each of us works on a very practical level. How do we communicate? Who's the person that's going to do the slideshow or the spreadsheet? Who's writing the email? The basics of that. And I think, when you assemble a team of 3 people that have never worked together, there's a practicality of learning how each other likes to communicate, how each other likes to move through, a meeting. Are we having an agenda? Are we not having an agenda? How are we going to do it? Who's going to send the Zoom meeting call? All this kind of stuff. And I think, all of that created a sort of a place so that when we got to the point of refining the theme and selecting the artists, we were really working in I would describe it as a consensus decision-making process. And so, when we went to select artists, we all were presenting to each other. We were all listening to each other. We would all go away and research what each other presented and come back, and we'd have another discussion. And some artists would end up on one list and others would not. And we would just keep going and going until we sort of got to a place where we felt, okay, this feels good. Are we all on board? And I think that I have been in curatorial processes before where we've decided that we're going to divide the work up from the very early stages. And I think we had articulated between the 3 of us, we didn't want to do that. We didn't want to have these are going to be your venues, these are going to be my venues, or these are going to be your artists and these are going to be my artists. That this is all kind of a fluid process. And so from another practical point of view, we wanted to make the invitation to all the artists come from an email that was authored by the 3 of us. We wanted the first meeting with every artist to be one where all 3 of us were all together. And then after that stage, we did divide things up for process of just moving things along. But even that shifted halfway through. Sometimes, one person was the point person, but when it came to install, another person, it's like when you run a relay and you pass the baton. So I think there were just a lot of flexibility and fluidness in terms of how we worked, but in terms of decision making, we kind of decided from the get-go, up until this point, we're going to make all these choices together. And then after the big decisions have been made, okay, everyone kind of go on and let's keep this thing going. And I had never worked in this way before in terms of large scale projects. I have in a museum setting, but that's really different. And I really think that it worked. I feel really confident because I walk into the show and I see the way that the pieces talk to each other and talk to place. And I feel like, okay, it was a bit messy along the way. And, we missed a deadline here and we missed a deadline there. But I feel like in the end, we got something that kind of worked. And I think curatorial work and exhibition making, it's messy. It's always very messy. It's sort of how it works because things are always changing. Artists are always changing. Space is changing. I mean, the hub, we didn't have the hub space till like a month before the opening or something, so you have to be flexible. And I think that inherent in exhibition making is this idea of flexibility. And when you can be flexible, it's what invites the most exciting things. Like I think back and I think if we had said no to this thing or this other thing because of a deadline, we wouldn't have had XYZ, and so it opens up all of these fruitful possibilities. And so as a very A-type person, what I have taken away from this process is like, hold space for that, hold space for the messiness, because that sometimes is really what is able to let you grow the things that maybe you couldn't have planned as much as you want to plan.
Mhm.
You're on mute, Binna.
Yeah, maybe like just to show a little bit of weak side of us, but also as advice to other collaborative process, is that don't be afraid of taking on a role of leadership, but give different time to each other when you work in horizontal way. So because if you don't have any leadership, someone who start something, who hold the space, then there's so much time that you remain hesitant and without knowing where and how to go. So like someone who's starting and then kind of goes along till the end is important, and that role can be interchanged, but that role is needed. And other one, like I really believe in the title of exhibition, work as a spell on you and on people, on group. So I think we live through aloha, no aloha as well, but eventually aloha no, because we were debating how to write aloha no, because we could remove this kahako that comes on the top of o, so it just be read as a no aloha. But we felt like ultimately we have to move on to aloha no, this deep love, and we make sure the kahako remains, and then designer even articulate the kahako with a peva healing sign, and so it functions as a reminder for our working process. We cannot betray what we are putting forward to the front. And then very last, but the most important thing that is the community. Like different person from the community really pops up at different moments to help us, even to give teaching reading. But that's like reading advice from the sage, from the Book of Change, is magical. I hope that you experience that and take that advice. Yeah.
I'm sure Josh will jump in here maybe too, but I would add that somebody with institutional history and memory is critical. And so having Josh there throughout the process, he was sort of like the fourth curator, and just the way he was able to take on roles within the unfolding, each iteration through a slightly different vantage point. Really, he enabled us to navigate, to get through some rough patches.
Yeah.
So I really want to show my appreciation to Josh.
Yeah, thank you. I guess I won't add too much, but I think I've been saying this a lot. Like, there's 1,000 ways to make a triennial in Hawaii. and I think they're all hard. Like there's so many different challenges that we face, but however, it's back to the question of time and having that space in the beginning, Wassan, as you're mentioning, to really lay the foundation to create that pilina, I think was like so important. And it was designed. I mean, I think it was, we wanted to create that space, and I wanted to, take as much opportunities to sort of host and to introduce you to community and to build trust like amongst one another, because in the time ahead when we're all stressed and running around and like going crazy, it was the trust that that you gave me to make particular decisions, knowing that I had your intentions and the intentions of the show and intentions of community sort of in mind. So really it was a time that built the trust to allow those things to happen. So yeah, thank you. And just if I could just maybe a concluding remark could be that, like, I think that every iteration of the triennial ultimately shifts or shapes or impacts the organization in a variety of ways. And so thinking back to Aloha No, as it was something that was really embraced fully by the curatorial team. For me, it's like, how do we kind of bring Aloha No into the core of what we do as an organization moving forward? Yeah, I think that's the hope, and that's the challenge, and that's the joy. So mahalo to our amazing curators and to IBA for giving us a space. And now we're running into 2 hours here.
I'm not gonna say anything. I think it's part of what we were just saying. Some things do take time, and we have to accept it, and it's perfectly fine. But of course also respect. Like build it in respect, build it in trust, and in that way, I think is the way. And I think what you were saying at the end, Josh, is also a reminder that something that we used to say, and we build part of our also kind of core values as IBA, that biennials are learning institutions, and we do learn from processes, and yeah, so it's great to see it in action, and let's hope that it's a continuous learning process. No? It's not it doesn't end at this edition, hopefully. With that, I want to thank everybody that was following, or everybody that is watching this at a later stage. It was really a wonderful conversation, and a great presentation of an exhibition that I hope many of our viewers will get to see firsthand. And we'll definitely keep following the works of Hawai'i Contemporary and Hawai'i Triennial in the future. Thank you for being here today.
Mahalo.
Thank you.